We often think the story of Jesus is confined to the pages of the Bible, a narrative of faith passed down through generations. But what if I told you that another story exists, written not by apostles or believers, but by the very empire that executed him, the Roman Empire? Today, we're diving deep into the historical archives of ancient Rome to uncover what they really said about Jesus of Nazareth. Why would the most powerful empire in the world even bother to document a humble carpenter from a remote province? The answer reveals a clash of worlds, a collision of power and faith that would change the course of history forever. To understand Rome's perspective, we need to picture the world they lived in. The Roman Empire wasn't just a collection of territories. It was a machine of order, law, and absolute authority. At its heart was the emperor, a figure who was often venerated as divine. Roman society was built on a rigid hierarchy, with gods, emperors, senators, and citizens all having their place. Their world was one of public spectacle, from gladiatorial games in the Colosseum to public executions, which served as brutal reminders of the state's power. Law was paramount, and any challenge to Roman authority was met with swift and decisive force. This was the world that Jesus was born into, and the world that would ultimately put him to death. So, what did the meticulous Roman record keepers have to say about this man from Galilee? Our journey begins with one of the most famous Roman historians, Tacitus. Writing in the early 2nd century, around 116 AD, Tacitus was a senator and a historian known for his sharp, cynical style. He wasn't a friend of Christians. In fact, he viewed them with suspicion. In his work, The Annals, Tacitus describes Emperor Nero's persecution of Christians after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. Nero, facing public outrage and rumors that he himself had started the fire, needed a scapegoat. And he found one in the burgeoning Christian community. Tacitus writes, and I'm paraphrasing his account, that to get rid of the report, Nero fastened the guilt and inflicted the most exquisite tortures on a class hated for their abominations, a group called Christians by the populace. He then provides the crucial detail. Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus. Let's pause and absorb the weight of that statement. This isn't a biblical scholar or a theologian writing. This is a high-ranking Roman official, a pagan who had access to official records. He confirms the name Christus, the Latin form of Christ. He confirms the method of death, the extreme penalty, which was crucifixion. He names the reigning emperor, Tiberius, and the Roman official who ordered it, Pontius Pilate. Tacitus provides a non-Christian external corroboration of the central event of the Gospels, the execution of Jesus under Roman authority. For him, Jesus was simply the founder of a troublesome new superstition, but in documenting this, he inadvertently gave us one of the most significant pieces of historical evidence for Jesus' existence outside the Bible. He didn't do it to support Christianity. He did it because it was a historical fact relevant to the story of Nero's persecution. But Tacitus wasn't the only one. Let's turn to another Roman writer, Suetonius. A contemporary of Tacitus, Suetonius was a chief secretary to Emperor Hadrian, which means he had access to the imperial archives. In his work, The Lives of the 12 Caesars, while writing about the Emperor Claudius, who reigned from 41 to 54 AD, Suetonius makes a curious remark. He says that Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome because they were constantly making disturbances at the instigation of Christus. This is a fascinating passage. The name Christus is a common misspelling of Christus in Latin texts. It suggests that by the 40s AD, just a decade or so after Jesus' crucifixion, the influence of his teachings had reached the very heart of the empire, Rome itself. It also indicates that the message of Christ was causing significant debate and conflict within the Jewish community in Rome, so much so that it caught the attention of the emperor. The Romans weren't distinguishing between Jews and Christians yet. They just saw a disruptive faction stirred up by a figure named Christus. This small mention is like a historical echo, confirming that the movement started by Jesus was already making waves far from Judea. Then there's Pliny the Younger. Around 112 AD, Pliny was the governor of Bithynia Pontus, a province in modern-day Turkey. He faced a practical problem. what to do with the growing number of Christians in his territory. He wrote a famous letter to the Emperor Trajan asking for advice. This letter is an incredible window into the early Christian community from a Roman perspective. Pliny describes his interrogations. He explains that he would ask people if they were Christians. If they confessed, he'd ask them 2 more times, threatening them with punishment. If they persisted, he ordered them to be executed. What's striking is what he learned about their practices. He tells Trajan that the Christians were in the habit of meeting on a certain fixed day before it was light. When they sang in alternate verses a hymn to Christ as to a god, they would also take an oath, not for any wicked purpose, but to never commit fraud, theft, or adultery, and to never break their promises. Think about this. Pliny, a Roman governor, confirms that early Christians worshipped Christ as a god. He highlights their strong moral code and their regular gatherings. Emperor Trajan's reply is equally telling. He tells Pliny not to seek Christians out, but if they are accused and convicted, they must be punished. However, he adds that anyone who denies being a Christian and proves it by worshiping the Roman gods should be pardoned. This exchange shows the official Roman policy. Christianity itself wasn't illegal, but refusing to participate in the state cult, refusing to worship the emperor and the Roman gods, was. This was seen as defiance, as disloyalty to the empire. The rapid spread of this new belief, with followers who pledged allegiance to a crucified man from Nazareth over the divine emperor, posed a deep psychological and ideological challenge to Roman power. It wasn't just a different religion. It was a counterculture. So why did Rome pay attention? It wasn't because they were interested in the theology of a new Jewish sect. It was because this movement had tangible political consequences. The Roman Empire maintained control through a combination of military might and cultural assimilation. A key part of that was the imperial cult, the worship of the emperor as a unifying force across a diverse empire. Everyone was expected to participate as a sign of loyalty. The Christians, with their exclusive allegiance to Jesus Christ as Lord, refused. They wouldn't offer a pinch of incense to the emperor's statue. In the eyes of a Roman administrator like Pliny, this was stubbornness, obstinacy, and a threat to public order. It was a silent rebellion. They saw a group of people whose ultimate loyalty wasn't to Rome, but to a king who had been executed by Rome. This was politically dangerous. The Roman sources paint a consistent picture. They see Jesus as a historical figure, a man named Christus or Crestus who lived in Judea during the reign of Tiberius. They confirm he was executed by Pontius Pilate. They document the existence of his followers, the Christians, shortly after his death, not just in Judea, but in Rome itself. And they portray this new movement as a source of social disturbance and a challenge to Roman authority because of their exclusive worship of Christ. These Roman historians, men like Tacitus, Suetonius, and Pliny, were not trying to prove the Bible right. They were simply recording events as they saw them, through the lens of Roman governance and order. They saw a strange, new superstition that was spreading with alarming speed, causing trouble and challenging the core values of their world. Their writings, born out of suspicion and administrative concern, provide a powerful, independent confirmation of the historical framework presented in the New Testament. This convergence of sources is what makes the historical case for Jesus so compelling. We have the accounts of faith, the Gospels, which tell us the story from the inside, filled with meaning, theology, and personal testimony. Then we have the accounts of history, the Roman records, which tell us the story from the outside, detached and concerned with politics and public order. One perspective is intimate, the other is impersonal. One is born from belief, the other from bureaucracy. And yet, on the core facts, a man named Jesus, who gathered followers, lived in a specific time and place, and was executed under Pontius Pilate, they agree. The Bible tells us one story. Ancient Roman records tell another, and where they overlap, history is illuminated. History documents the events. Faith gives them their ultimate meaning. Over centuries, empires rose and fell. The mighty Roman Empire, with its legions and laws, eventually crumbled. Its temples are now ruins, its records faded parchments. But the name of the carpenter from Nazareth, the man they executed as a criminal, continues to echo across 2,000 years of history, shaping cultures, inspiring art, and transforming countless lives. The story of Jesus is not just a story of faith. It is a story that is etched into the very records of history, even those of his enemies. It's a testament to a legacy that no empire could erase. If this exploration of history surprised you, let me know by commenting Jesus down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy diving deep into the historical records to uncover the truth, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more documentaries that challenge what you think you know. Thanks for watching.